Hello, everybody. My name is Eric Van Sickle. I am a reporter for Waverly Newspapers, and I am also a driver for Lyft as well on the weekends. But on top of everything else, I am a huge fan of the Chicago Cubs. Uh, been was on and off for like maybe the first few years of my life, but uh, since 1983, when my parents got cable TV, I've been basically full time. In fact, right now I am wearing the 2016 World Championship T-shirt with the Cubs W flag printed on it. And of course, they didn't win today. This is Sunday, September 29th. It's the we're after the final games of the regular season, and uh, the Cubs were eliminated from playoff contention on Tuesday in the midst of their 9-game losing streak, and Milwaukee having a big. I think it was their. I think they finished the season on a 22-5 note. I'd have to look that up. But then they were, but before that, last weekend they were taken out of the division consideration when they lost four straight uh, to the St. Louis Cardinals. But anyways, the reason why I am posting this today is because I wanted to give my thoughts on now former Cubs manager Joe Maddon and what I think about who the next manager will be. Now, it was announced this morning that the Cubs and Maddon, or especially the Cubs president of baseball operations, Theo Epstein, and Joe Maddon had met right after yesterday's game, which was uh, correct me if I'm wrong, an 9-6 victory over the Cardinals, which had put basically delayed by 24 hours or 12 hours or so. Time. You got to think of the time here. They're delayed by a few hours. The Cardinals' celebration to take the Central Division because just a few minutes later, Colorado came back to beat Milwaukee 3-2 in 10 innings. So if the Cardinals had won last night, they would have won the division last night instead of tonight or today. So after that meeting, Theo and Joe decided, or at least came to an understanding that today was going to be Joe's last game as Chicago Cubs manager, as his 5-year contract expired about 4:30 this afternoon. That's probably about when that game ended. It ended up being a 9-0 Cardinals victory that gave them the Central Division title. So for the first time in 5 years, the Cubs are not in the playoffs. And the Cubs been in the playoffs 4 straight years. They've had 2 wild cards, 2 pennants, and a World Series victory in 2016. And for all that, us Cub fans are eternally grateful to Joe Maddon because he was the guy who led this talented team across the finish line 3 years ago. Now, of course, there was speculation that this was going to be a dynasty, that the Cubs were going to win year after year after year, like the Yankees of yore. Now, of course, you can see the beginnings of that in 2015 when they won the second wild card, beat Pittsburgh in the wild card game, and then took 3 out of 4 against St. Louis to win the divisional round before getting swept by the Mets in the league championship series. But then, of course, the Mets lost to the Royals and Ben Zobrist to give the Royals their first championship since I was in junior high. Now, of course, the following year, was magical. I mean, basically everything came out right. They won the division title for the first time in about a decade. Uh, they they took out the Giants in 4 games in the divisional round. Then they won the pennant in 6 games over the Dodgers, and then in a very exciting World Series, it went all 7 games. The Cubs were down 3 games to 1 to the Indians. Then they won Game 5 in Wrigley. And people had almost lost hope in game before Game 5. Tickets started going down in the secondary market. Excuse me. And then they had that big rout in Game 6 to set up the big Game 7. They had a like a 5-run lead in Game 7. Indians came back, and then you got that Rajai Davis home run off of Chapman in the 8th to tie it, scoreless ninth, and then the rain delay came, and Jason Hayward called a players only meeting in the weight room. Obviously, what he said worked. Uh, uh, and you can YouTube Game 6 or Game 7. YouTube Game 7 of the World Series 2016, and you'll see everything that goes from from I mean, it really meant a lot to everyone because Kyle Schwarber, he had a knee injury second or third game of the season. He rehabbed it, went to the Arizona Fall League for a little bit, and then when the Cubs made it to the World Series, he knew that he could DH because for the 7 games were at Progressive Field because that was the last year of the All-Star game determining who has the home field advantage for the World Series, and unfortunately, the American League won it that year. Of course, it was under if the home field was under the new rules, Cubs would have been home field because they had the best record in baseball at that time. So Schwarber DH then led off. He got a single. Albert Almora Jr. came in to run for him. Chris Bryant flew out to center. That allowed Almora to tag up and go to second, and then there was an intentional walk of Rizzo. Rizzo got intentionally walked, and then Zobrist came up, hit that double to score Almora, move Rizzo to third, gave the Cubs a 7-6 lead, and then after another intentional walk, Miguel Montero came on to the single home. Rizzo make it 8-6. Indians get 1 run in the bottom of the 10th off of Carl Edwards Jr., who's since been traded this year, and then Mike Montgomery comes in, just throws us 2 pitches and hits the ground ball to Bryant for the winning out. And every time I see that video, I just choke up. To this day, it chokes me up because that was the first time in my lifetime that I saw my baseball team win the championship. So we Cubs fans think it's going to be a dynasty. It sort of looked that way in 2017. Went back to the LCS, only to fall to the Dodgers in 5 games, I think it was. And then last year, the house of cards started falling in on itself, and Cubs had one of the best records in the majors up until September. Then the Brewers started their amazing run. I mean, the Brewers' run was almost like the '69 Mets. and then they caught the Cubs. One game tiebreaker. Brewers win it in Wrigley, force the Cubs to be the number one wild card, host the Rockies. Rockies beat the Cubs in the wild card game, but that's still a playoff appearance. There's a lot of fans who discount the 2018 season as not a playoff appearance. That is a playoff appearance. They got the wild card. The wild card game is a playoff game. Come this year, Cubs, like the relief pitching, I'll have to say, was not the best in 2019. One thing, Brandon Morrow, who was supposed to the closer, he was injured all season. He never made it out of spring training. Uh, Pedro Strop, he was being groomed to be a closer. He couldn't get it done for a while. So, and he got injured too. So, basically, Maddon had to go bullpen by committee, and then and then they and then they bring in Greg Kimbrell, former closer for the Red Sox. He was a free agent through June. Basically, he had no spring training because no team would want to give up a draft pick to the Red Sox because the Red Sox gave a qualified offer before Kimbrell decided he would go test the free agency market. Now, how the free agency system works for some players is that when you get a qualified offer from your team that you're leaving, if any other team signs you, that team has to give up a draft pick, a compensatory draft pick, to your former team. So nobody wanted to give the money that Kimbrell wanted and a draft pick to the Red Sox. So the Cubs waited and waited, kept talking to Kimbrell, as did the Atlanta Braves and maybe a couple other teams. But when the June draft came along, and there was no more thought of giving up that pick to the Red Sox, the Cubs swooped in and signed Kimbrell. Unfortunately, it didn't work. Didn't work this year though, because like I said, he had no spring training. He came in, signed in June, sent to the minors for essentially rehab. Basically, that became his spring training, playing minor league games in Dayton, maybe even South Bend and Low A, Tennessee, in Des Moines with the I Cubs, and then came up to the big club after the All-Star break. And unfortunately, he wasn't as effective with the Cubs as he had been with the Red Sox. And he has nearly 300 saves in his career, or over 300 saves in his career. So that's what the Cubs were hoping for, but lack of spring training, lack of whatever he had going on, maybe up here. Also, a few injuries. I mean, he was shut down about 3 or 4 times going to the injured list. So the bullpen, also some of the other guys in the bullpen, they brought in Derek Holland as a lefty specialist. He didn't pan out after the trade from the Giants. A few other guys that brought up from Iowa, or they got trades or free agency signings for. A lot of them didn't work out. Tyler Chatwood, who was signed last season as a starter, he ended up pretty good. Steve Cishek also pretty good in the pen, but most of the rest of the guys in the pen weren't working. That's not quite on Joe Maddon. That'd be more on Hottovy, the pitching coach. So you could probably give that to him. Not having the pitchers ready every game. The starting pitching, early on, it didn't. Basically, early on, it wasn't all that great. But then, as the year wore on, the starter started logging a lot of innings, a lot of key innings, uh, uh, getting a few good decisions in there. Lester had a run. Uh, Hendricks, he had a great run in there. Late in the year, Darvish. I mean, last year he was basically written off because he was so injured all the time. He had a late see after the All Star break. He had a good start. He did have a string of 14 starts where he had no decisions, but he pitched well enough to win, and the bats weren't working for him in some of those starts. And then, but then lately he had like double-digit strikeouts each game. I mean, there was like uh, la- uh in the game or in the series against the Cardinals last weekend. I think it was last Sunday. He was going for a complete game shutout. The Cubs were up 3-0 going into the bottom of the ninth. You may have run out of gas. That's all. That's all I could probably say. He may have run out of gas, but he showed that he can he could probably put the team on his shoulders every fifth day. Hopefully, he can carry that over to 2020. Um, Hendricks, I'm hoping that his good year, his solid times on the mound carries over to 2020. Jose Quintana, he's been up and down. Uh, he, I think that the right pitching coach might work through some of his struggles, but he could probably work out for 2020. The other two members of the rotation, John Lester and Cole Hamels, I don't think are coming back in 2020. They might even retire. I mean, they're getting up there in years. I mean, Lester's in his mid 30s. Hamels is like 34, 35, 36. When you get up there as a starting pitcher, especially like Lester, a power starting pitcher, and both being lefties, I mean, they'll have jobs. They can find a job somewhere. They're both, but they're both. I think they're both coming up in free agency now. So the question is, one, will Theo and General Manager Jed Hoyer offer them anything, or just say, "You guys had a great run, John. You had a great run for 5 years. Cole, they thank you for the last 2 or 3 years, but we need to go in a different direction. We need some younger, better arms, whether it be coming up from Iowa, move Chatwood back into the rotation, sign somebody like uh, somebody in the realm like Verlander, who the Astros had acquired and then signed, and then he's doing great with the Astros right now. I don't know if Madison Baumgartner is a good fit for the Cubs, or uh, I haven't caught up on who's going to be in the free agency market. If I do have comments available, please uh, jot them down below. Who's a free agency picked availability for the starting pitchers. The lineups had been inconsistent. I think a lot of that is Joe's philosophy. Now, when Dexter Fowler was a member of the Cubs, he was the consistent leadoff hitter in 15, 16. I think he was in I think possibly 17. But he was a leadoff hitter, and then Brian was always in the 2 hole. Rizzo was always in the 3 hole. Uh, was the Wilson Contreras was in the 4 hole. Javi Baez was in the 5 hole. Schwarber, Hayward, and one other player, maybe even Addison Russell. They switch around the 6, 7, and 8 holes, and sometimes even the 9 hole uh, when Joe puts the pitcher in the 8 hole. But you had guys consistently in 1 through 5, 1 through 6, maybe even 1 through 8 at times. When Fowler was with the team, without Fowler, Cubs didn't have a true leadoff hitter, so Joe experimented with different guys in the leadoff spot: Schwarber, Rizzo, Zobrist. They last year they tried Happ at the Ian Happ at the top. The thing is that the Cubs didn't have a true leadoff hitter who gets on base and then can steal a base. So one thing that Theo Epstein and Jed Hoyer need to do in this coming off season is to find a true leadoff hitter. And I'm thinking classic leadoff hitter, not somebody that can start the game with a home run. I mean, that'd be nice to have that, but we want base. I'd like to see some base runners. I mean, I like to see somebody like Dexter Fowler, or maybe going all the way back to my childhood, Bob Dernier. He was a leadoff hitter for the '84 team, and he and Hall of Famer Ryan Sandberg were known as the Daily Double because they got on base and started things off for the guys down in the order, like Ron Say and Gary Matthews and Jody Davis and such. So you need to have a leadoff hitter. Second thing they need to do is to sign Nick Castellanos to a contract. I don't care whether it's 1 year or 5 years or whatever. They need to get him under contract. He was because he was the biggest acquisition at the trade deadline that helped the Cubs out immensely when they got him from the Tigers. Basically, when he got traded from the Tigers to the Cubs, Big Stick Nick basically treated every game like it's opening day. There was a saying that he would tell stories that he would tell guys in the clubhouse, "Happy opening day." Even though it's the middle of August, even though it's the middle of September, he would go, "Happy opening day," and then he hits a bunch of doubles. I mean, he was getting close to 60 doubles total for the year by the time today's game rolled around. But yeah, I would say get a true leadoff hitter, get Castellanos signed, and he would fill that 2 hole immensely. Then I would say a lot of people are saying listen to offers for Chris Bryant. I don't want that. The guys on this roster who are untouchable are Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, Javier Baez, and Wilson Contreras. That's our core. That is the Cubs' core right now. Those 4 players have to stay in Cubs pinstripes. And in fact, you put Bryant at the 3, Rizzo at the 4, Javi at the 5, Contreras at 6, or interchange Javi and Contreras, maybe even interchange interchange any of those 4. I mean, you can have Javi at the 3, Brian at the 4, Rizzo at 5, and Contreras at 6, or whatever. But keep those 4. I would listen to offers though for guys like Kyle Schwarber, for Albert Almora Jr., for Addison Russell. And maybe even for Jason Hayward. I mean those guys. Hayward's I think Hayward's coming to the end of his deal that he signed in 2016. So he could go. He has improved since that contract recently, but uh, Kyle Schwarber, um, he is maturing into a left fielder, though maybe his biggest strength is maybe as an American League designated hitter. Almora's defense has deteriorated some, but it's just those those guys. Maybe even somebody like David Bodie or Ian Happ. Those could also be possible trade tokens for teams that are trying to build up their clubs. I mean, especially like Happ and Bodie because they in the majors right now would be bench players, or at least with the Cubs. They would be coming off the bench a lot, and maybe they could become an integral piece for some team elsewhere that is trying to build up, oh, like the Marlins or the Rays, maybe even Seattle or Pittsburgh. Um, but basically, you would have to ask for either a frontline starter or two or three relief arms for those guys. Any of those guys. Now, let me get to, now. Of course, now I'm burying the lead here because getting to the title of this video or this, I'm doing this as a live cast, but the title of this video is talking about Joe Maddon. My thoughts on it. I think that Joe Maddon got a little bit of a raw deal. I mean, this guy spent 5 years with one of the most historic franchises in Major League Baseball, in front of the best fans, some of the best fans in Major League Baseball. And the last two seasons sort of soured things. I don't totally blame Maddon for the Cubs' failures in 2018 and 19. I mean, some of that does bear some of the responsibility on Epstein and Hoyer. Some of it you can also maybe blame Tom Ricketts, the chairman of the Cubs, the principal owner of the Cubs. He and his brother and sister are the ones who own the team. But Tom Ricketts uh, is the main thing, the main voice of the main face of the ownership. I mean, and he is a fan, and when he and uh, his brother, who's now the governor of Nebraska, and his sister had bought the team in 2014. Somebody remind me this. Um, he said that he was in it to win it. He was going to build a winner. And then he brought in Theo Epstein. Epstein brought in Jed Hoyer. And they said that they were going to build a winner. And come 2016, they got the winner. Before the 2015 season, they uh, they poached Maddon from Tampa when he got it, basically negotiated an out with his deal with Tampa and got rid of Ricky Renteria, who's now with the White Sox, uh, so that they could get a guy who has championship, at least pennant winning pedigree on the Cubs. And frankly, they overachieved in 2015. They did what they need. Basically, they had that magical 2016. They kept it up somewhat in 2017, but then started to tail off in 2018 and 2019. But I think Joe did the best he could with the talent that he had. But unfortunately, it just seemed it just wasn't good enough. He couldn't. I read somewhere that Joe just couldn't outmanage the mistakes Theo and Jed made, or Theo, Jed, and Tom made, I should say. So, and of course, always the fall guy in professional sports is either the manager or the head coach, depending on. I mean, I mean, in baseball, if a team goes only 50 and 132, it's the manager that gets fired. If an NBA team starts the season 2-13, the head coach gets the axe. They don't get rid of all the players because there's too many players to trade away or cut to get some new players. Um, if there's a problem within the locker room or clubhouse, they don't get rid. They may they may get rid of one or two players, but it's simply the manager or head coach whose job is on the line for not controlling things. So yeah, unfortunately, Joe Maddon was the fall guy. Although I think he probably could have deserved a 2-year extension, because I think this team still has the the wherewithal, still has the talent to become a World Series champion again in 2021, 22. You know, it's in that way. I mean, the championship window is not closed with this team. Joe had a good formula for a while. Maybe some people might think that he wasn't the right fit anymore. I mean, he was a great fit when the Cubs the core was young and up and coming and hungry. Now the Cubs core are experienced, uh, established, and they have a ring and a really big ring. It's like it looks like this big. At times, some of it's got like has 108 diamonds on it to signify the 108 years they had between championships. So, but yeah, it just seems that the manager. It seems to some that the managerial style of Joe Maddon didn't fit the way the team is now. So now there's talk that there's maybe two candidates for the Chicago Cubs managerial job. That is current bench coach Mark Loretta and special assistant and ESPN analyst and former backup catcher David Ross. Of course, David Ross had a cult following during the 2016 season as Grandpa Rossi because he was one of the oldest guys on the roster, and he was on the team for for those last two seasons, 15 and 16, because he was the personal catcher of John Lester. So basically, those two were tied at the hip. And of course, Ross retired after the 2016 World Series, hit a home run in his final game, which basically is a fairy tale ending in any sport. I mean, like Derek Jeter hit a walk-off single for an RBI in his final game at Yankee Stadium when he retired. So, but Grandpa Rossi can one up him because his biggest hit or his last hit was in the World Series and helped the Cubs win the championship. So anyways, Loretta and Ross are supposedly the two candidates for the Cubs job. Some people are also uh, bringing up former Cubs catcher, former New York Yankee manager Joe Girardi. Uh, Now, of course, a lot of people are discounting Girardi because one, it sounds like he doesn't want it, and also it seems that a lot of fans don't want him as the manager because of what he did as the Yankees manager. Not just the fact that there was a lack of championships. I mean, the Yankees had been have been on a titles route during a lot of Girardi's managerial tenure. Um, so of course, a lot of people are wanting Ryan Sandberg, the former Cubs Hall of Famer. He was once coaching within the Cubs minor league system before he got passed over for Renteria. So he went to the Phillies. Didn't work out well with the Phillies, which the Phillies was his original team before he got traded to the Cubs in 82 or 83 as the he was traded to the Cubs in the Larry Boa deal. Uh, it, it was like it was 83. It was Ivan de Jesus to the Phillies for Larry Boa and a player to be named later. That player to be named later was some unknown minor league second baseman, shortstop named Ryan Sandberg, and that worked out well. Anyways, so Rhino, uh, after he retires the second time, he retired for a little bit to go through a divorce and gets remarried and gets the itch to come back in the game, play a few more years, then retires again. Then the Cubs started pulling him through the minor league system to get managerial experience. Gets up to Iowa, gets passed over by Renteria, and then Renteria gets canned in favor of Joe. Anyways, yeah. So the conventional wisdom is that it's either going to be Loretta or Ross. Now, this season, Loretta was the bench coach, so he has direct contact with a lot of the players' current roster. Uh, but also, I'd read that he was a conduit between the players and the front office, and basically did end runs around Maddon. So let so the so he would let the players or let the manager know what the players are thinking about certain moves or decisions that Maddon made. Ross, like I said, is currently a special assistant to to the front office, and he's also an analyst on ESPN. So, but that's also a similarity with what Loretta had because when Theo and Jed were with San Diego, Loretta was a special assistant with them. So so basically, both Loretta and Ross were able to work closely with Epstein and Hoyer with helping to build the roster. So they know about the players. Ross also, as an ESPN analyst, knows what's going on with the rest of the league, the rest of the major leagues. I mean, so he knows who is coming up as a free agent. He could get whisper into Theo's ears. Hey, here's this guy from Minnesota is about ready uh, to have his account. He's about ready to become a free agent. He's doing well. He's hitting uh, like 295 against the White Sox. He's hitting uh, he's hitting the X against the left-handed pitchers at night, and and with the wind blowing out, and it's such so far such so. Um, Either could be a good manager. The one thing they do not have is experience, but then of course, some of the better managers right now, like Aaron Boone in New York, uh, uh, manager right now in Houston. His name escapes me. I know he's originally from the Waverly area or Clark, yeah, somewhere around Waverly. Um, Also, Craig Counsell up in Milwaukee. Some of those guys have no managerial or coaching experience before they were given the reins to their club, and it's working out well for them. If they are chosen by Theo and Jed and Tom to be the next manager of the Chicago Cubs, best of luck. Best of luck to them. I mean, they got some big shoes to fill after Joe Maddon bringing the Cubs the title. I mean, I keep saying that Joe Maddon will never buy another dinner in the city of Chicago ever again. So, if I were to make a call, I would think maybe David Ross will be the next manager of the Chicago Cubs. I mean, like I said, he is a former player. He played for the Cubs for 2 years. He had a lot of camaraderie with the young guys of Rizzo and Bryant and Baez and Castellan, and Contreras. So he is a former catcher, so he knows uh, he knows how pitchers are looking. Uh, he may even give Contreras a few pointers about uh, as well as Victor Caratini and such. I don't know. I don't know if Lucroy, who the Cubs picked up uh, later on, or picked up in a free in a off the waiver wire. I don't know if he's going to stay with the Cubs. I mean, that's three catchers right there, and Schwarber's an emergency catcher. He came up as a catcher before he got converted to left field. But yeah, Ross. I think Ross is somebody who can help out. He would know what how the pitchers are doing because he used to catch he used to catch some of those guys. Um, so I and also I think he may be able to light a fire under everybody, unlike what Madden did, but he can also help the guys have some fun because he was having fun in his last 2 years in the majors. So bottom line, uh, my pick for like I said, my pick for the next Cubs manager is David Ross. Hopefully, we'll see Grandpa Rossi in the Cubs dugout again, and hopefully he can help the boys in blue get back to prominence. So for that, we'll sign off. And once again, I'm Eric Van Sickle. I have some videos. Uh, uh, yeah, I have some videos that I've got from my uh, work with Waverly newspapers. I would suggest that you do subscribe to my channel. I will share some of those videos uh, from Waverly newspapers uh, onto this channel. Uh, some I've uploaded directly to, so check them out. I'll put up more videos here and there. Also, I may try to do a few vlogs from my time as a Lyft driver. I just need to find a way to get a good camera that can use in my car because my phone. I don't think I can use my phone as a camera while I'm using the Lyft driver app. So uh, I might include a few stories from my time on the road here and there. So uh, so yeah, let me know what you think. Once again, Like, comment, subscribe, click the gray bell. Uh, check out my other, like I said, check out my other newspaper videos that are shared to this channel or uploaded directly to this channel. And hopefully see you the next time. Go Cubs.